Hey everybody, it's Brown Mary Wajatali here, subbing in for Mary Trump. Don't worry, she's A-okay. She's just taking the day off and she'll be back next week. And folks, as you know, I like to do this like Tina and Ike, not like Credence. The first part we do it nice and easy, but then we do it nice and rough. And folks, we're going to keep it rough against Donald Trump because he wants you to not think about Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, his closest friend Epstein. And we're going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, you know, his closest friend for 10 years, that Jeffrey Epstein, the man that he partied with, the convicted pedophile, that Jeffrey Epstein, the story that 89% of Americans are following. The only thing that's bipartisan in America in the past 10 years is that Republicans, independents, and Democrats want to know more about the Epstein scandal. And we're going to get into it today. And also, Donald Trump is trying so hard to distract from the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Oh, you know, Jeffrey Epstein, his closest friend, that he is unleashing the DOJ to go after his enemies, to go after Letitia James, to go after President Obama, to subpoena the Clintons. But it still ain't working. People still want to know more. And then he tries to distract with more tariffs and trade wars because, of course, the tariffs haven't worked. The trade wars haven't worked. So what does Donald do? He doubles down. More tariffs. Because tariffs, everyone knows except Donald Trump, are taxes. Paid by who? You and me. It's a mess, folks. But thankfully, we have some catharsis, some people fighting back in the form of South Park, who dog walked, and I use the word dog walked very deliberately, Kristi Noem, and we will have your moment of Zen today as well to end the week. Let's get into it. So Donald Trump is trying to distract from Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile who died by suicide during Donald Trump's first administration. But we're not going to let him off the hook, folks. And for the first part of the show, we're going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, who Michael Wolff, the author of 4 books on Donald Trump and who's also a journalist, he has audio recordings of Jeffrey Epstein, where Jeffrey Epstein said that he was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. Specifically, if you follow the timeline, Jeffrey and Donald knew each other in the late 80s. In the 90s, they were like this, thick as thieves together. We've seen the videos, we've seen the photos. Oh, they were having a fantastic time, partying, looking at girls, preying on girls, going after models. And then apparently in 2004, they had a fallout over a real estate deal. Jeffrey Epstein contends that Donald Trump stabbed him in the back for this huge palatial estate in Florida. Donald Trump outbid him, and that's what, if you will, ended the relationship. Last week, Donald Trump, who, by the way, cannot shut the F up, thank you, Donald, for incriminating yourself, said it was over Jeffrey Epstein stealing from me. He stole from me. It wasn't property. It was Virginia Giuffre, who was a 16-year-old spa attendant working at Mar-a-Lago. Her father worked as a manager at Mar-a-Lago. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime. Ghislaine Maxwell, who not only preyed on these young girls, groomed them, and also molested them along with Jeffrey Epstein, saw Virginia Giuffre, who was 16 years old, working as a spa attendant in Mar-a-Lago, and then said, come work for Jeffrey Epstein. We'll make your dreams come true. Virginia Giuffre then said for the next 2 years, she was passed around like a platter of fruit to Epstein and other powerful men. She also named Prince Andrew. That's what Donald Trump was upset about, that Jeffrey Epstein stole from me, a human being. Well, I actually talked to Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff, again, has allegedly hundreds of hours of on-the-record interviews with Jeffrey Epstein. He's been on the Lolita Express. He's gone to Jeffrey Epstein's $77 million mansion. He has not published these hundreds of hours of recorded interviews with Epstein, but he knows a lot, folks. And I asked him to join me on my Substack, The Left Hook. Folks, it's free, no paywall. Pardon me for the shameless plug, but it's all out there. Go check out the 1-hour interview I did with Michael Wolff. If not, we have some clips. And specifically, I really wanted to get to the bottom of this close relationship that Epstein had with Donald Trump. Again, folks, Epstein said, his words, that Donald was his closest friend. And I wanted some insight on Ghislaine Maxwell, because right now, Ghislaine and her attorney and some folks in Newsmax and right-wing media are saying, oh, she's just a victim. She was no victim. She was part and parcel of this operation to groom and abuse girls, people. I want you all to sit with it for a second. Hundreds and hundreds of girls. And that pedophile, that groomer, that woman who is complicit in the abuse of these girls just last week was moved to a minimum security camp in Texas for no reason whatsoever. Ghislaine Maxwell, a sex offender, was moved to a cushy minimum security camp right after she had a 2-day meeting with Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal attorney, who is now in the Attorney General's office. Here's a clip.
When the Wall Street Journal published this birthday greeting from Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein, salacious, basically focused on women, even hinting at a secret that they had together, the White House immediately understood that this had come from the Maxwell side, from her family, from her lawyers, and that they saw this, and this is a phrase one of Trump's aides used with me, as a shot across the bow. So therefore, Ghislaine Maxwell is sending a message to the president of the United States, is that, I got the dirt on you. I can directly connect you to Jeffrey Epstein. So immediately the call went out. Trump to Todd Blanche, get down there, see what she knows.
Excuse me? A shot across the bow? What goods does she have? According to Michael Wolff, that Wall Street Journal bombshell. Oh, Wall Street Journal owned by Rupert Murdoch, those flaming lefties. For the timeline, they were the ones who stood by the reporting and said that Donald Trump had penned a lewd message to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. Donald Trump picked up the phone and tried to persuade them not to publish the story. Then he threatened to sue them. The Wall Street Journal said, "No, we're very confident about our story." They published the story. Donald Trump is now suing Wall Street Journal. And then a couple of days later, Wall Street Journal published another article mentioning other names who are in this book that was assembled by Ghislaine Maxwell for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. I want to remind everyone that in 2002, Donald Trump openly said, Jeffrey Epstein, great guy. He likes girls, a bit young though. So they were very, very close. And Michael Wolff is saying there was Ghislaine Maxwell and her team that leaked this to the Wall Street Journal. Well, folks, to keep the timeline, I know it's a lot. After these bombshell reports came out, then Todd Blanche, who, by the way, before he was a deputy attorney general, was Donald Trump's personal attorney. Todd Blanche went and talked to Ghislaine Maxwell for 2 days. 2 days he talked to her. And then right after that, Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney on Twitter, folks, publicly asked both the Supreme Court and Donald Trump for a pardoning or a commutation of Ghislaine Maxwell's sentence, calling her a victim. Well, within a few days, less than a week after that meeting, Ghislaine Maxwell gets transferred to this cushy minimum security camp in Texas. This is a quid pro quo happening in real time. This is a cover-up happening in real time. Folks, it is shameless. It is naked. There are the most incompetent, reckless folks on earth. They're the most helpful supervillains. They're literally doing it in real time. And furthermore, I was talking to Glenn Kirshner earlier today, former federal prosecutor, a great voice when it comes to justice, the law, rule of law. He was saying, if indeed the government wanted to get some information from Ghislaine Maxwell, you don't send Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's compromised personal attorney, there's attorney-client privilege that still exists. You would send, I don't know, the prosecutor. Who was the prosecutor? Who was the prosecutor who prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell? Maureen Comey. Well, where was Maureen Comey? Oh, yes, she was fired. Folks, this is happening in real time. Ghislaine Maxwell is still serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. We still don't know who authorized her transfer. We still don't know why the Bureau of Prisons waived her sex offender status that allowed her to be transferred to this cushy camp in Texas. Right now, the Washington Post is reporting as saying, quote, while it's not uncommon for prison officials to allow inmates who cooperate with investigations to move to lower security facilities, it is rare for sex offenders to receive such benefits, and they almost never get moved into prison camps like Brian, experts said. Quote, it is enormously preferential treatment, said said Judy Garrett, a former Bureau of Prisons assistant director. Quote, getting a public safety factor for a sex offender waived is monumental. Clearly, Donald made a deal with Ghislaine Maxwell through his personal attorney, Deputy AG Todd Blanche, and now she has been sent to a kosher facility in exchange for her silence. And reports came out this week that Ghislaine Maxwell is saying, I never saw Donald do anything wrong. Huh. Well, then in our conversation, Michael dropped a bigger bomb. Check this out.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump are really in so many ways the same person.
Wow.
So, so I've always, and I think it's very important to understand even the nature of our time, to step back and say, okay, here are these two guys joined at the hip for almost 15 years, doing the same thing, pursuing the same goals. Two guys who are functionally partners in crime, if you will. And one ends up with a sheet around his neck in the darkest prison in America, and the other in the White House.
Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were, quote, the same person. They were, quote, partners in crime. The president of the United States and a convicted pedophile who died via suicide in 2019. I wasn't going to let that go. I needed to hear a little bit more on this one, so I asked to follow up.
You know, you said something, Michael, just a couple of minutes ago that stuck with me, where you said, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump are pretty much almost the same person, and you saw it, partners in crime. Jeffrey Epstein is a convicted, pedophile, preyed on young girls. Did he ever tell you that he preyed on young girls with Donald Trump?
Well, there's a whole nomenclature issue here. And I think much gets lost in that. And a lot of people have said to me, as I've said this same thing, that they were the same person. They say, you don't mean to suggest that Donald Trump liked little girls. And I scratched my head on that, and I said, I put that aside. Just put that language aside. What Donald Trump liked and what Jeffrey Epstein liked, what they were obsessed about, what their central pursuit was about, was models. And this was an age beginning in the 80s and into the 90s. Models were at the center of the zeitgeist. Models, supermodels, runway models, Victoria's Secret models. They represented status for a certain kind of men. They represented success, achievement. They represented sex, and not ordinary sex, a special kind of sex. And that's what Epstein and Trump, that was this central pursuit of their lives. Now, models. How old are models? Well, models were, what were they? They were basically from 14 to 20. That was, if you were interested in models, that was your age group.
Girls aged 14 to 20. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein partied together. They knew each other. Donald Trump gave Jeffrey Epstein a nickname. He introduced him as his associate. Jeffrey Epstein, according to Michael Wolff, the tapes that he has at least shared, is on record as saying that he was Donald's closest friend. We have seen the videos, we have seen the photos. Donald Trump, according to the latest reporting, was told by his Attorney General Pam Bondi back in May that he is all up in the Epstein documents. CBS News, as of a few days ago, said, again, I want to give credit to where credit's due. They actually were scooped by Allison Gill of Mueller. She wrote, they confirmed that the FBI division, there's an entire division of the FBI that was asked to flag Donald Trump's name over thousands of documents, and his name appears over all these documents, and then they were asked to redact it. What we know is Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein partied with these girls. What we know is Donald Trump had a modeling agency. What we know is Donald Trump owned Miss USA, which also has within it Miss Teen USA and Miss USA. What we also know is that these girls in Miss Teen USA said that Donald Trump, a grown man, used to go into the dressing room while they were changing and made them felt uncomfortable. What we know on the record, Donald Trump has talked about his own daughter, sexualizing his own daughter when she was a girl, to the point where it's reported that John Kelly in the first administration had to stop him and say, "Sir, that is your daughter." What we know is his other daughter, Tiffany. He was having an interview with Marla Maples, and she was just 1 year old, folk, at that time. And she goes, "She's got Marla's legs, but we don't know if she has this yet." What we know is he pointed at girls who are about 10 years old or 12 years old and said, "In 10 years, I'll be dating her." What we know is this man has nearly 24 credible accusations of sexual assault against him. What we know is that Donald Trump has been held liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll and defaming her. What we know, folks, and this is the top of my head, this is a man who bragged about grabbing women by the pee. And what we know is that Jeffrey Epstein said that he was his closest friend. It is disgusting. It is disgusting that this was all in public. Everyone knew about it. And this country decided twice to elect this man as the president of the United States of America. And the question you all should be asking is, what are they hiding? What are they hiding? How come they aren't releasing the Epstein files? How come Michael Wolff, who has hundreds of hours of interviews with Jeffrey Epstein, is out here telling you that they were partners in crime? His words, not my words. And they were thick as thieves, close together, closest friends. How come there has been a cover-up going on for the past 2 months? And how come the Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI Director Kash Patel and the Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who promised to uncover the deep state, who promised to release the Epstein files, are doing anything and everything except that? Question to ask. And what they are doing is distraction. Folks, don't take my word for it. Trust the evidence of your eyes and your ears. For the past few weeks, instead of talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein files that Donald Trump now calls the Epstein hoax, they have attacked Black folks. Have you noticed? Prominent Black individuals are being attacked. Oh, there's conspiracies about Beyonce and Oprah and President Obama. The latest one earlier today, he's now going after his enemy, New York Attorney General Letitia James. Donald and the Justice Department apparently is now acting as his own police and Gestapo, are opening a civil rights investigation into Letitia James' office and appointing a special prosecutor to scrutinize her real estate dealings. Lexi, play the clip.
Some breaking news sources are telling us that New York Attorney General Letitia James and her office are under investigation by the Department of Justice in relation to her case against President Trump.
Two well-placed sources familiar with the probe tell Fox News that New York Attorney General Letitia James and her office is under investigation by the DOJ here in Washington. We're told that Attorney General Pam Bondi signed off on the probe. Subpoenas were sent to James's office, and there is a grand jury investigation underway in the New York State Capitol of Albany. The specific investigation, my colleague Jake Gibson, Ashley Oliver, and myself are being told involves deprivation of rights, which in plain language means someone in a position of legal authority violating someone else's constitutional or legal rights. Those sources tell Fox News the DOJ is going after James because she took then former President Donald Trump to court, quote, simply because she didn't like him and campaigned on getting him.
Folks, I keep the receipts. Donald Trump is really, really, really pissed off at Letitia James. Why? Because she's very competent. She's very good at her job. She's a woman and she's very black. All things he hates. And Letitia James, as the Attorney General of New York, won a big, big case against Donald Trump. Oh, remember that case, that civil case, that fraud case? Oh, yeah. You know how Donald Trump owes New York nearly $500 million that she successfully proved the civil case, the fraud case where Donald Trump apparently defrauded New York to the tune of what was it, about $450 million. Yeah, that case. So he didn't like that. No bueno. And what they're saying right now is Letitia James, he deprived me and my adult children of our rights during that probe. Folks, Letitia James is tough as nails. This is all bullshit, but nonetheless, it is not normal. I want us to just sit with this for a second. What he's doing is not normal. Using and abusing the Department of Justice to go after judges, to go after attorney generals, to go after anyone and everyone who could be a threat to him. This is a massive distraction. This happens in authoritarian regimes. The Department of Justice is not his plaything, is not his personal police. They're supposed to be independent, follow the rule of law and the Constitution. But he has Pam Bondi, his personal reek, as the Attorney General. So now the Department of Justice is doing this bullshit investigation into Letitia James. And also, it's a warning to anyone else. You better get in line. So it's not just Letitia James, folks. The other distraction is Tulsi Gabbard came out, you know, Russia's girlfriend, concocted this conspiracy about President Obama. And there's this huge deep state conspiracy about the Russia hoax. All bullshit, folks. There was a bipartisan report released, co-authored in part by his own Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, that said that indeed Russia interfered in the 2016 election. Now, whether or not that tilted the election, we don't know, but they interfered in it. And guess who believes that? A lot of Republicans. So now he's saying that no, President Obama manufactured all this. Let's just use logic. So you're saying that there's a deep state and President Obama manufactured all this stuff and he's against Donald Trump. If that was the case, why did Donald Trump become president in 2016? When he barely beat Hillary Clinton by a Nazi Hitler hair? Shouldn't the deep state have intervened and said, nope, sorry, Donald, it belongs to Hillary? And why did this deep state, I don't know, all of a sudden go into a coma in 2024 when Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris by 1.4 points? It's all bullshit. It's all distraction, folks. But he's getting desperate. He's a desperate rabid rat backed into the corner because of the Epstein scandal. So he's going after Letitia James. He's going after the Obamas. James Comer has now subpoenaed the Clintons, right? Texas Republicans are asking the FBI to go after these Democrats who thankfully are playing hardball and are keeping the Texas Republicans from gerrymandering. Just today, breaking news from about an hour and a half ago, Attorney General Ken Paxton, who knows a thing or two about hiding from subpoenas, has now sued and is trying to kick off these Democrats, take away their seats, right? These 12 or so Democrats. Folks, they're getting desperate, so desperate that I got to mention this. Big Balls. Oh, you know that 19-year-old Doge incel, Big Balls? He claims, I have to laugh at this, that he was assaulted by all these teenagers and carjacked. And they're using that as an excuse to say, look at crime in D.C. So now Donald Trump is threatening to federalize Washington, D.C. because 19-year-old Doge incel who goes by the name of Big Balls has an allegation that he was apparently carjacked by all these teenage criminals. So now Donald Trump is saying, look at crime in D.C., even though crime has gone down. Violent crime has gone down all across America. Distraction. It's not just a distraction, folks. He's trying to normalize the president of the United States weaponizing the DOJ and the military against United States citizens. And none of this is normal. We laugh a bit about Big Balls because we should. And we talk about the distraction as we should. This is not normal. To have the military with the National Guard and masked armed agents terrorizing Los Angeles is not normal. To have the president even threaten to federalize the nation's capital is not normal. To have the Department of Justice come up with this bullshit distraction or to even go after the Attorney General for doing her job is not normal, folks. And furthermore, I want to remind you all how it all goes back to Epstein. Reports said that J.D. Vance was going to meet with Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel and Chief of Staff Susan Wiles at his private residence to talk about counter messaging when it came to the Epstein scandal. Folks, That ain't normal. Thankfully, they're so dumb it leaked and the meeting was allegedly quashed, but that means they're meeting. That means the attorney general is working with the FBI director and the White House to concoct a strategy to distract from the Epstein scandal. And you're seeing that strategy play out in real time. Letitia James' lawyer, Abe Lowell, said the following, quote, "This is the most blatant and desperate example of this administration carrying out the president's political retribution campaign." He added that the appointment of Ed Martin, quote, "makes it crystal clear this is a manufactured investigation to pursue political retribution." Folks, yep, it's never-ending Festivus, right? Festivus comes once a year. For Donald Trump, it's 24/7 because of his freaking fickle, deluded, decaying mind where he's attacking windmills and talking about Hannibal Lecter. He can't help but go after his enemies. And his enemies, have you noticed, folks? Oftentimes, Black people, women, and Black women. But folks, Epstein ain't going away. Epstein ain't going away. Like I said before, for the 4,000 people who are joining us, it's the only thing that I've seen in the past 10 years that has achieved a rare type of bipartisan support. More than 80% of Republicans, more than 80% of independents, and nearly 90% of Democrats want more information about the Epstein files. And folks, some polls show that anywhere from 80 to 89% of Americans are following the Epstein story. This ain't going away. So domestically, he's having a rough time. Well, maybe when it comes to foreign affairs, Donald Trump will do something better. I keep the receipts, and I remember that he said that if you elect me as president, the war in Ukraine will end. Russia will bend the knee. Day one. Y'all remember that? Seems like he was lying, folks. That war is still raging. Russia is the one that invaded Ukraine. Russia is the one that is occupying eastern Ukraine. Donald really can't seem to make up his mind if he wants to be aggressive against Russia or if he wants to be Putin's best friend or Putin's poodle. He seems to flip-flop a lot when it comes to Ukraine. One moment, he's allegedly pro-Ukraine, but then he spends his presidency promoting literal Russian lies and propaganda. But right now, shockingly, he has decided to make amends with Putin. Shock. After an alleged rough couple of months, reports say that U.S. and Russian officials are working toward an agreement on territories in a planned summit between Donald and Putin that could come early as next week. CBS News is reporting today that while the two appear to be coming to a deal, Putin is shadily needling Donald and messing with his head as peace talks near. I mean, look how cruel Putin is. The reports say that Putin, by the way, trained in intelligence, gave Donald's special envoy, Stephen Witkoff, an award to pass along to a senior CIA official whose son was killed in Ukraine fighting alongside Russian forces. The award, the Order of Lenin, was meant to be handed off to Julian Galina, who is currently serving at the CIA as Deputy Officer for Digital Innovation. CBS reports that the, quote, gesture by Putin, known for mind games and attempts to expose adversaries' points of weakness, was likely meant to raise unhelpful questions and highlight that CIA's official's son fought for Russia in the war. He's just trolling. He's trolling because he knows Donald Trump is his poodle, his dog. If you ever want to see a limp, impotent Donald Trump, see him talk about Putin. Has he ever criticized Putin as he criticizes the CIA or the FBI or Barack Obama or Letitia James or even Republicans? Nope. Sits there compliant and docile. Why? Why does Donald Trump, a man who has no problem attacking anyone and everyone, sit there and agree with Vladimir Putin for the past 10 years? A question, folks, I want you all to ask. Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's a money trail that can give us the answer to that question. Folks, and also, because I keep receipts, something that was only reported in CNN. On Russian news, Russian television, they were openly talking about how Russia and Donald were in cahoots to split apart some territories. Apparently, Russia would get Ukraine and Poland, and Donald would get Panama and Greenland. That was only reported on CNN. It was something that I kept a track of, but I'm very curious when they talk about territories in their upcoming meeting. Well, what territories are they referring to? Panama? Greenland? Canada? Remember, Donald Trump kept at it, Canada will be the 51st state. Remember, Donald Trump said he's open to military options when it comes to Greenland. Remember what he talked about, Panama, America first? Just something to think about, folks. I try to keep the receipts. Let's move away from Russia for a second and let's go to the Middle East. He's especially useless when it comes to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Folks, earlier today, Friday morning, some devastating and reckless news. The Israeli Security Cabinet approved a plan to fully occupy Gaza City. Yes, occupy. And this is just the beginning of the end when it comes to Israel's attempt to occupy the entire strip, river to the sea. It's going to be Gaza, then it's going to be the West Bank. When Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was asked whether Israel would take over all of Gaza, he responded, quote, "We intend to." Donald Trump now, the president of the United States, has the ability, folks, as other presidents before him, like Ronald Reagan, like Eisenhower, to pick up the phone. And as Israel's closest ally, with the special relationship that America has with Israel, the fact that we give billions of dollars of aid, the fact that without our weapons and our missiles, Israel could not continue its genocide of the Palestinian people. Israel could not continue expanding settlements in the West Bank. Israel could not continue occupying illegally the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. Donald Trump could pick up the phone right now and say the following: what you're doing is reckless. What you're doing is dangerous. Listen to Yair Lapid, the former Israeli prime minister. Listen to Ehud Olmert, the former Israeli prime minister. Listen to your own military that is telling you that this would be dangerous, reckless, and make the situation far, far worse for everyone, especially the Palestinians, but also Israel and the region. Stop it right now. If you don't stop it, I, Donald Trump, president of the United States, will turn off the tap. You will not get a single dime from me. You will not get diplomatic and international support and cover from the United States of America, and you will not get a single weapon from the United States of America. You know what will happen, folks? You know what will happen? Just like that, Israel will be forced to stop. You say, watch. No, that's never happened before in the past. Early 80s, Israel committing war crimes in Lebanon. Ronald Reagan saw devastation on his television set, picks up the phone, calls Israeli Prime Minister Begin, says, "I'm seeing a Holocaust on my TV." The Prime Minister of Israel at that time said, "With all due respect, sir, I know a thing or two about the Holocaust." Reagan says, "I don't care. This has to end immediately." 20 minutes later, the Israeli Prime Minister calls back Reagan and says, "Fine, it's over." Dwight Eisenhower, Bush, all these people have flexed. Donald Trump can flex. He must flex. Folks, there is a genocide happening in real time. Israel has killed over 61,000 Palestinians. The Lancet, a medical journal, says that is an undercount. Most likely, the number is 40% higher. Over 150,000 Palestinians have been injured. There are more child amputees in Gaza than any other place in the world. Israel has killed more children in the past 2 years than all the children killed in all the war zones combined. The word genocide is not just my word. Amnesty International uses it now. Human Rights Watch uses it. B'Tselem, an Israeli human rights organization, now uses the word genocide. Omar Bertov, an Israeli Jewish American who was born in Israel, served in the IDF, one of the preeminent scholars on the Holocaust and genocide, 2 weeks ago came out with a scathing piece in the New York Times saying this is a genocide. We now have only 10. The bar is so low it's in hell, but at least we have 10 Democrats and Marjorie Taylor Greene saying it's a genocide. Just last week, you had for the first time ever a majority of Democratic senators, including Bernie Sanders, 27 of them, vote to stop sending U.S. weapons to Israel. I know the number is so low, but the fact that this is happening, the fact that it's 27 is huge. We have a majority of Americans, a majority of Democrats who are now pro-Palestinian. Last week, you had 300,000 Australians marching in Sydney to end this war. And yet Donald Trump says, well, I don't know, it's up to Benjamin Netanyahu. I can, what do I need to do? I'm just going to get some more Doge money, some more crypto money. Folks, this is happening in real time. This is a genocide happening in real time. And the reason why I'm spending a little bit of time on this is without the United States, Israel cannot do this. The United States is complicit in this ongoing genocide. And now you have it from the horse's mouth. Israel is openly saying they're going to occupy Gaza and move the Palestinian people. What does that mean? Ethnic cleansing. They're going to transfer the indigenous population to the south. And the last thing I'll say, this last data point, is that Gaza right now is suffering from phase 5 starvation. We're seeing videos of children dying. children dying from man-made starvation because Israel has decided to stop sending humanitarian aid. Folks, you've seen those photos. You've seen the videos of children dying every day. The number keeps increasing. Even the children who are not dying with phase 5 starvation, there's long-term damage. We have seen Israel every day kill unarmed, starving Palestinians who have gathered at food aid distribution sites in Gaza. The Haaretz said, quoting an IDF soldier, that the IDF soldiers have been commanded by their leaders to shoot at unarmed Palestinians gathered at food aid distribution sites. Since May, Israel has killed more than 1,200 Palestinians who've gathered at these sites. And the question I ask all of you, when will we say enough? When will we say enough? This has been done with your taxpayer dollars and my taxpayer dollars. Again, without U.S. support, this could not happen. So do what you can, say what you can, rally your elected officials. For the first time ever, there seems to be a shift. This genocide has to end. That's what's happening on the foreign front. On the domestic front, and folks, it doesn't get much better. What do you do when your trade war fails? What do you do when the world figures out that tariffs are taxes paid by U.S. consumers, but you haven't figured it out? What do you do when Liberation Day has come and gone and the rest of the world has not bent the knee and given us any trade deals that makes America great again? Well, if you're Donald Trump, my God, you just double down on the chaotic mess. More tariffs, more, folks. Who would have thought that picking a fight with our allies, where we have free trade agreements with, Canada and Mexico and Australia, would actually backfire, and that our allies would finally say enough is enough and turn and go to our competitors. That's what the EU is doing. They're like, we can't trust America. We're going to go to China. Japan, for the first time ever, is going to trade beef with Brazil because they don't trust America. Tourism has gone down in America. Right now, we've lost about $12 billion. By the end of the year, they're saying we're going to lose about $49 billion in revenue because the world is turning away from America. Las Vegas, again, is just one example. Tourism has gone down by 11%. The US dollar has gone down by 10%. Moody's has downgraded our credit rating. So that means nothing to see here. Naked gun meme. Nothing to see here. Everything is going well. Well, this is a Donald Trump solution. In an executive order signed on Wednesday, Donald Trump has decided to raise tariffs on India from 25% to 50%. Yes, that'll do it. Who pays for the tariffs, folks? It's a tax that you and I will pay for. We're already feeling it. Price of goods, price of eggs, price of groceries. Well, The Guardian reported that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi ain't budging on Trump's demands, which include halting purchases of Russian oil. The Guardian piece goes on to say, quote, India's foreign ministry hit back almost instantly, calling the additional tariffs unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable, and accusing the U.S. of double standards, as other countries are also importing Russian oil that have not faced the same punitive action. Donald Trump, let me go punish India. Let me go after Canada. Let me go after Australia. Let me go after Vietnam. Let me go after all my allies. Let me just make everything worse, because I did not take any lessons when I went to Wharton, and Wharton should give me back all the money because apparently I'm the worst student that ever graduated from Wharton Business School. And even though an 8-year-old knows that tariff is a tax, I don't know because I'm Donald Trump and I live in my own head and la, don't talk about Epstein. Folks, this is dangerous times. I just want to remind folks, because there's so much news, that last week he fired the commissioner of Bureau of Labor Statistics, a doctor, because he didn't like the numbers that the BLS published. Folks, the BLS has up-to-the-date numbers. We've invested so much money in this fantastic infrastructure. The BLS just gives you the raw data. The raw data that came out last week, and I'm just trying to connect the dots because there's so much information. I know people might forget, but I don't want us to forget this because none of this is normal. The BLS came out with the job numbers. The job numbers, no bueno, folks. They had to revise the numbers and revise them down. When it came to job growth, very limited, very troubling, especially in the private sector. So, of course, the markets responded to that data, that shows limited and troubling growth, especially in the private sectors. And the stock market last week had its worst week since 2020, What was happening, Lexi, in 2020? Remember? Oh yeah, we were all terrified of dying of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. That was last week. So what does Donald Trump do? He says it's a hoax, it's a fraud, these numbers are phony, and he fires the commissioner of BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because he didn't like the data that showed that his stupid trade war and the tariffs are finally hurting the economy, and job growth has slowed down, trickled, especially in the private sector. This is not normal. This is what happens in authoritarian regimes, folks, okay? This is what happens in authoritarian regimes when you can't trust your own president because he does not like the data that is showing that his economic policies are a failure. Folks, but unfortunately, we have reeks. We have reeks who are still willing to bend the knee to make sure that business runs well for them. And this includes all the billionaires and the tech bros and corporate law firms and universities. And if you don't believe me, there is a fantastic clip of Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, who decides openly in front of the whole world to bribe Donald Trump. He didn't have a plane, a $1 billion plane. That was Qatar. So instead, he gives him a 24-karat gold stand. Lexi, play this clip.
This bond was made in the U.S., California, and this glass comes off the Corning line. It's engraved for President Trump. It's a unique unit of one. It was designed by a U.S. Marine Corps corporal, a former one, that works at Apple now.
He's done well.
Designed to create. And the base comes from Utah and is 24 karat gold. And it sits, I'll take the liberty of setting it up.
Wow.
Well, let's see. There we go. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now, you all might call that a gift. I will go ahead and call it a bribe, literally in real time. This is a transactional president. And why did they give Donald Trump a bribe of a 24-karat gold stand or whatever that was, is because in exchange for that bribe and this commitment, this promise by Apple for an additional $100 billion in the U.S. economy, Donald Trump said, okay, then I'll exempt you from my new plan. And the new plan is going to be better than the last plan, folks, because the last plan worked so well. 100% tariffs on all computer chip imports. 100% tariffs on all computer chip imports. If you don't do it in America, I'm going to do 100% tariff on all the companies and all that use imports on computer chips coming from other countries. Okay, so you're going to have to invest in America so that iPhones can cost $3,000. Folks, just because Tim Cook and Apple pledged $100 billion, additional $100 billion investment in the U.S. economy, did you see any paperwork? Lexi, was there a contract? No, right? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we didn't edit anything. No paperwork, no contract. Tim Cook came out and said, sure, Donald, we're going to invest $100 billion in U.S. jobs. You like that headline? Good headline. Bueno. Awesome. Here's a 24-karat gold stand. Good headline. Yeah, good photo. It's all bullshit. It's all smoke and mirrors. The trade war has been a failure. There have been no trade deals. These tariffs are taxes, folks. These taxes are being eaten right now by U.S. consumers and businesses. There was a clip that went viral yesterday of a Trump supporter saying, I can no longer eat these costs. What does that mean? If they know they can no longer eat these costs, they're going to pass those costs along to you in the form of higher prices. This is not good, folks. There are warning signs. There are warning signs of a potential recession. Donald Trump, who would have thought that he might lead us into a recession? Oh, you know, the man who was bankrupted 6 times, including bankrupted 2 casinos, and who was president already during the worst friggin' pandemic in our lifetime, and who also then crashed the economy in the first time. And now that he has his druthers, wants to do it on steroids the second time. I hope I'm wrong. But just look at the indicators, look at the data, listen to the experts. It ain't looking good. Now, we've given you a lot today. We've given you the Epstein. We've given you Donald Trump weaponizing the DOJ to go after all of his critics. We're talking about how he's going more and more authoritarian, normalizing the military and National Guard being unleashed against citizens. We're talking about how he's desperate and he's distracting. We're talking about a real life genocide that all of us have witnessed streamed to our phone, that Israel is committing openly. And now Israel is saying that it's going to occupy Gaza. And then, of course, it's going to occupy the West Bank. Donald Trump has the ability as the president of the United States to stop it, but he won't. Donald Trump has the ability to stand up to Vladimir Putin, who is occupying and invading Ukraine right now, but he won't. Instead, he's doubling down on these tariffs because in his lizard reptilian aging brain, he thinks that somehow tariffs will help make us great again. And our partners who are actually engaging with us in, as allies with free trade are screwing us because he doesn't understand how the economy or global trade works. So we need some catharsis. We need some release, especially as we're seeing Tim Cook and billionaires and corporate law firms and Harvard and Brown University all bend the knee. And as of this recording, news came out 30 minutes ago that he's trying to extort, let's just use the words, he's trying to extort $500 million from UCLA. You better do more to stop anti-Semitism. Only I can be the anti-Semite and use anti-Semitic words like Shylock and, promote anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. I can be the only anti-Semite. So I'm going to extort money from you. You be $500 million, or else I'm going to withhold funds. That's what's happening right now against UCLA, folks. So the only person who seems to be actually hitting back, in addition to Mary Trump and independent media, myself and others, is South Park. South Park, folks, is the hero that we needed. South Park, after securing a $1.5 billion deal with Paramount, all the money is guaranteed. The next day, they dropped the first premiere episode of the new season in which they showed Donald Trump with the micro penis in bed with the devil. And then you thought, all right, South Park is finished. Nope. South Park is going hard in the paint. They give 0 Fs. So for their second episode that came out, they went after ICE and Kristi Noem. And I want to make sure that, this doesn't get removed due to copyright. So we'll just do a clip. It gets worse. It gets better. By worse, I mean it gets better. So here's Kristi Noem. The whole episode, Kristi Noem has an entire team, right? That if you've seen the movie F1, which was a great movie to watch in IMAX, you know how there's a pit stop. So they have like 12 people descend upon Kristi Noem every single time her makeup is getting bad, and her face literally droops. Right? It's hilarious. Her face is drooping in real time, and then there's a pit stop where all these yes men and reeks come and they make her face up like this, and then she does a cosplaying, right? You would think that Kristi Noem would be shamed because not in addition to mocking her literal plastic surgery and looks, they also mock the fact that she kills dogs throughout the entire episode. I mean, it's hilarious. Anytime there's a dog, Kristi Noem goes, "Oh my God!" She takes out her gun and she just shoots dogs. Why? Because Kristi Noem, in her memoir, openly admitted to shooting dogs. So she kills all the puppies in the episode. She also is seen as cosplaying as this tough guy, right? Going after rounding up innocent brown people in communities. She's also the woman who wore a $50,000 Rolex watch, who posed in that photo that was reminiscent of a photo that was taken from World War II in front of concentration camps, going to El Salvador and posing with the $60,000 Rolex watch in front of all these brown men who were kidnapped by the U.S. government and sent to an El Salvador prison to die without due process. You would think all of that would embarrass her, but that's not what embarrassed her, folks. What embarrassed her was that they made fun of her looks. On Glenn Beck's podcast, Noem expressed her displeasure with the recent South Park segment where Noem is seen shooting dogs. She told Beck, "It never ends because it's so lazy to make fun of women for how they look. Only the liberals and the extremists do that. If they wanted to criticize my job, go ahead and do that," which they did. And clearly they can't. They just pick something petty like that. Clearly it got to her, folks, because if you saw photos of her today, for the first time in 6 months, instead of cosplaying, she dressed up like a middle-aged professional public servant. So clearly it's getting to her. I'm serious. Look at the photos. For the first time in 6 months, instead of dressing up as like Rambo Barbie, she's dressed up like somewhat like a normal human being. Humiliation and mockery. Ruth Ben-Ghiat and all experts on authoritarians and tyrants and dictators. Mel Brooks always said this. This is why he used humor against Hitler. He says, that's how I belittle them. That's how I expose them. That's how I mock them. All of these strongmen, whether it's Mussolini or whether it was Hitler, whether it was Gaddafi, whether it was Saddam Hussein, or whether it's Donald Trump, they hate being humiliated. They hate being mocked. They hate being laughed at because it punctures the narrative of the strong man. It shows that the emperor has no clothes, and according to South Park's depiction, a very small micro penis, right? And then what happens? It normalizes laughing at them. It pops the bubble, the propaganda of the Teflon Don, and shows them to be weak and orange and decaying with cankles. Keep laughing at them. They cannot stand it. These are the world's most fickle, weak people with the weakest knees and the weakest jaws. Susan Thompson, I love you. $20. She says, thank you to Waj and Lexi working together to bring all the receipts. Thank you, Susan, one of the greatest moderators in all of independent media. Folks, I hope that gave you some catharsis. We need the laugh. And there's cracks now, folks. There's cracks. There are weakening in the Trump administration. You're seeing the Joe Rogan manosphere, the Andrew Schultz manosphere. Some of their viewers, some of their dudes are walking away from them. You're seeing the Nelk boys. For those who don't follow, because I'm way deep into the weeds, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is the idiocracy we're living in. When Donald Trump won in 2024, Dana White, the president of the UFC, was invited to address the crowd. Can't make this shit up. And Dana White thanked the Nelk boys, who are these podcast pranksters who aren't boys, the 30-year-old men. He thanked Joe Rogan, and he thanked Theo Vaughn for bringing young men to Donald Trump. Well, in the past week, all of those people are getting roasted. Mark Maron, by the way, gives 0 Fs. Mark Maron has a new HBO special out. Roast the brosphere. Roast Joe Rogan, roast Theo Vaughn. The Nelk boys are getting roasted by their own base because they did an interview with Prime Minister Netanyahu, a war criminal, and their own base said, why the F are you platforming Netanyahu and not pushing back? And then the Nelk boys, who are 30-year-old men, have spent the past week apologizing on all the right-wing podcasts. You're seeing Joe Rogan go down. You're seeing the approval ratings go down. You're seeing Donald Trump being unable to distract from the Epstein files. These are cracks, folks. And not only are these cracks that we have to exploit, to quote Ken Watanabe from Godzilla, let them fight. You got to put pressure on the Democrats. The Democrats have to fight. Ken Martin, the head of the DNC, finally said, we're not going to bring a pencil to a knife fight. No, you got to bring a gun. He said, we're going to fight fire with fire. You need the Democrats to stand up and fight. We need an end of the Israeli genocide of the Palestinian people. We need an end to any bending of the knee. We need 0 votes and confirmations. We need the governors. If they're going to gerrymander and steal seats, we got California, the most populous state in the country. We got New York. We got Illinois. Pritzker, Hochul, Newsom. Do it. They're going to cheat. Do it. Fire with fire. Lexi has told me that we have 8 minutes left. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I was on a rant, if you will. There are 5,000 people watching us. Don't worry. Mary Trump will be back. I'm filling in as a Brown Mary. I promised you. I do it like Ike and Tina. We do it nice and rough. But Proud Mary keeps on rolling. And we're going to roll to this segment that we needed to end the week. This segment of Zen, this segment of catharsis, this segment of relief. We all need a relief and we all need release, folks, because this is a long walk. This is it's going to be a fight for our democracy. It's going to be 10 toes down. Folks, anyone who thinks that snap of the fingers, 2026 or 2028, everything's going to go back to normal, you're not paying attention. Generational damage has been done in these past 7 months. I haven't even told you about RFK and his dismantling of our public health infrastructure system, or the dismantling of our experts and our scientists who are now fleeing and being poached by Europe and Japan and China, or the fact that, measles is spiking. People have died and people will die as a result of the dismantling of the government, USAID, people losing their jobs in veteran affairs. Oh yeah, folks, the dismantling of the FAA. Do you feel safer flying in America? Do you feel safe when United says, whoopsie, got to ground all our flights? That happened this week. It's going to be bad. But we have to do our part. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has a role to play when it comes to fighting fascists, whether it's your voice, your dollar, your vote, whether it's in your family, your home, your street, your city council, national elections, local elections. We all got to do something. And we here at Mary Trump Media are doing our part to not bend the knee to fascists, to Republicans, to Democrats. We praise people who deserve to be praised. We criticize people who deserve to be criticized. And we criticize Democrats because we want them to do better. Right now, the Democrats have even a lower favorability rating than Donald Trump. But I think they're getting the memo and they're getting the message. And corporate media is not doing the job by bending the knee. So we have to do their job for them. And we also need these moments of relaxation and zen. So with that, here's the emotional support moment of today. We're going to see the beautiful sights and sounds of a tiny waterfall, but just big enough to wash our worries away, at least for a moment. Folks, I don't say that lightly. Really take the time to enjoy your loved ones, spend time with your family and your friends. Try to have some control in your life and do those hobbies that give you joy, whether it's gardening, long walk. We need you for the long haul. I do not need martyrs. I do not need people who are stressed and freaked out and panicked and who are miserable in their homes and their relationships or at work. We need you to be joyful. We need joyful warriors, because this is a long walk to not just restoring our democracy. We need reformation. The time of restoration is over. We need and demand reformation. We are the majority. We have the numbers. We have the voices. And when we unite, we can take on fascists and we can win. It's happened before in the past, and inshallah it can happen again. But again, just rest and heal for the long walk ahead. Folks, this was Mary Trump Alive. Of course, I'm not Mary Trump. I'm Brown Mary. I filled in for Mary, who will be back. Don't worry. She's got a lot on her plate. She'll be back next week. I was joined by my DJ, Lexi. Lexi is fantastic. She brings in all those clips, and all the fantastic team. They do the writing and they bring in the clips and they do the research. Makes my job super easy. Folks, there were about 5,000 people joining us. If you joined in late, don't worry. This will be up on YouTube in about a minute or two. Strongly recommend go back and see some of these clips. We had my exclusive interview with Michael Wolff. He says stuff which is, folks, it'll make you throw up in your mouth. I mean, really, it'll infuriate you that this man, Donald Trump, was Jeffrey Epstein's closest friend and preyed on models and young girls for as long as he has. And the fact that this man is the president of the United States of America right now, it's sickening. And folks, for all the people who are super chatters who have given us donations, thank you so much. I want to give you some shout outs right now. Stephanie, you have exquisite taste. You said, I'm your favorite alt Mary. Thank you. Another Stephanie with $20. Oh, no, that's the Stephanie there with $20. We have Jacqueline with $2. We'll take the $2. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Susan, she's everywhere and she keeps giving money. Thank you so much, Susan, for being such an awesome mod. John Gillis, first saw you on Nerd Avengers. Love listening to you. Thank you. The Nerd Avengers will be back. And when I'm not here, there's other Nerd Avengers like Brian Karam and Adam who's subbing. They're fantastic. Zila, late fee. That's right. Anyone who came in late, you got to give us a late fee. I'm just kidding. That was fantastic. Nanner, 44 years ago today, two youngins walked down an aisle. We haven't offed each other yet. Must be love. Wonderful. Happy anniversary. PJ, a loyal viewer, $19. Thanks so much. We got Susan, who gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, everyone. Mary also has a fantastic Substack. Please become a subscriber. Mary, $5 for the Brown Mary fee. Thank you. I have 800 kids. I'll be able to feed one of them tonight with that. Karen with the $20, I'll be able to feed all 3 of them. And then we got Midas Cheryl, who gifted 1. And then we had Kerr Noel Medical Intuitive as a new member. Welcome. And then Be Best. Brown Mary Mary, $5. Thank you all so much for watching. And folks, we have now more than 450,000 people on Mary Trump's YouTube channel. Please, if you aren't a subscriber, please become a subscriber. Click the bell. You'll be notified when we get fantastic content. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your Friday night. And come back next week when Mary Trump will be back, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, to host Mary Trump Live. Lexi and I and the Mary team wish you the best Friday and the best weekend. Rest, heal, and laugh. Take care, everyone.